Every year between July and October, over 300 wild elephants converge on the shores of the ancient Minneriya Tank, creating one of the largest Asian elephant gatherings on Earth. It's a phenomenon shaped by centuries of seasonal rhythms and one that's now at risk. On Kaleidoscope Let's Talk, photographer conservationist and Cinnamon Nature Trails Vice President Chitral Jayatilake shares powerful insights into this majestic spectacle, why it matters for Sri Lanka and the urgent need to protect it. But what is most interesting is that a Sri Lanka Wildlife Festival has been organized in the UK for the first time. Chitral, you piqued my interest. What briefly is the Sri Lanka Wildlife Festival in the UK all about?
We initially thought we'll take this concept to London, work with the High Commission there, our Sri Lanka High Commission, and create a leopard exhibition in London for the market. But then when we had a chat with the Deputy High Commissioner, Her Excellency Manohari Mallikarachchi, she said Sri Lanka is not about leopards, it's about much more. Why don't we think big? So then we came up with a concept to create an event called the Sri Lanka Wildlife Festival. So everything is a go now. It starts on the 15th of July. We have 65 images where we will showcase Sri Lanka's biodiversity from Jaffna all the way to Yala and in between.
What makes the Minneriya gathering, the elephant gathering, one of the greatest wildlife spectacles in Asia?
Way back in 2001, I think, with a lot of work done by Gihan and Sri Lal, the Lonely Planet magazine classified this as the sixth greatest animal congregation in the world. It was a huge shot in the arm. But I believe at the time, the tourism fraternity didn't grab hold of it properly. But over the years, it has been almost as predictable as the Great Migration in Africa, right? So it's an amazing event. And the beautiful thing is 90% of the tourists arriving in Sri Lanka, their first point of destination after Colombo is Habarana, Anuradhapura, Sigiriya to see the cultural site. And this event is 20 minutes away.
What is the ecological significance of having so many, like hundreds of these elephants in this one particular spot in the dry zone?
It's a man-made event. I have the great pleasure of working very closely with Dr. Prithviraj Fernando and Dr. Sumit Pilapitia because we do some research based at the Lodge Habarana. And what they tell me is that these water bodies, Kaudulla, Minneriya, Somavatiya, all that was never built to serve animals. It was built by ancient wise kings to serve mankind. But today, they serve both humans and beasts alike. So it's an amazingly man-made, delicate balance between human lifestyles and facilitating animals to survive around that. So it's a beautiful balance, but that balance needs a little bit of help or intervention by us so that you continue to have that magic forever.
So the seasonal water patterns, like you were saying, is this sort of across the island or is this just very sort of in Minneriya itself?
When it comes to the north central province, where from Moragahakanda all the way to Kantale and everything in between, Minneriya Kaudulla becomes somewhat stock tanks. Because they release the water from high ground to these middle areas and they release for the Yala crop and later on for Maha. And then some years we have bad droughts. Now this year we are blessed with an abundance of rain. So there is a little bit of intervention the water management resources bodies along with the Department of Wildlife, SLTDA, needs to do so that they keep the water level at Minneriya Kaudulla at a certain level that is great for cultivation if they need that water, but not too much, so that the tank recedes in the mid-year drought, facilitating the gathering to happen. Because the whole event is about the receding water allows fresh grass, and here comes the elephants.
So what are the biggest threats this gathering faces, both natural and human?
Humans believe that cultivation is more important than this event. It will get affected seriously. It did get affected quite badly 4 years ago. A spectacle which you generally find 300 plus elephants by August was down to less than 75 once 4 years ago. That's one threat, and I think that is an easier threat to overcome because it just needs consensus and it's happening. The other one is to some extent badly managed tourism, overcrowding and indiscipline in the parks. And these are all, for some fortunate reason, are things well within our capacity to manage, and we just got to put our heads together and make sure that we keep this magic.
Chitral, how do you balance having this gathering as a tourist attraction on the one hand and protecting the elephants and their habitat and how they behave in that Minneriya area on the other?
Elephants are not territorial like leopards. They are nomadic. They are wasteful feeders, so they need to walk, feed, and walk around. You know, we had the great privilege of working with the Department of Wildlife and Dr. Pruthu, and we imported a couple of radio satellite collars, and the department placed them on the matriarchs, and we now track them with Dr. Pruthu's team to see where the herds move. It's amazing. Every 2 months, they're like 50 to 70 kilometers apart. So they walk around. So as a result, we need to map out, and there is a lot of research done in the country by amazing scientists, and there are over 100 elephants collared. So there are movement patterns, there are feeding patterns, there are visitation patterns already mapped out. What we ideally now need is the government, along with the scientists, the Department of Wildlife, also very importantly together with the SLTPB, the tourism board, to get together and make sure that new villages don't come out in these areas where the elephants move. End of the day, we need to facilitate human beings living, that is paramount, but we have a spectacle which is worth protecting. So if the departments start working together, importantly with the tourism division, we can save this, and it's easy fix. It just needs a little compromise and a national level interest.
You mentioned collaring, and you also mentioned nomadic. So do you find the same elephants coming to the Minneriya Tank, or is there a change often?
85% of the elephants that are seen this year would come next year. Now, through the Cinnamon Elephant Project, which we've been doing for the last 11 years, Dr. Pruthu and his team, along with our guides, they have identified more than 450 elephants by name and by pattern of their ears, their shape, their scars, and we've named them. And we see how they keep coming back, because it's, these very, very intelligent animals. Their brain development is only second to humans as they're born, right? So they learn through experience. And that is why it's difficult to beat them by just putting electric fence and ignoring it, because they'll find a way to overcome it. So they keep coming, and there's an amazing event that happened, a tragic event, and now something else has happened to almost replace it. 6 months ago, we've seen a big male called the unicorn. It's a single-tusked, massive male at Minneriya for the last 15 years. Every year he would be there in must, ready to mate. 6 months ago, very sadly, a gunshot killed him. So we lost the unicorn at Minneriya. But 2.5 months ago, an amazing specimen, another large tusker, met with an untimely accident on the road called Sumedha. And it is all on national television news. And through the accident, the elephant's left tusk broke away and fell on the road. There was a lot of concern whether it will survive. It survived. And I'm happy to inform you now that Sumedha has now returned to Minneriya, almost replacing the unicorn with a single tusk. So nature has its own ways of, filling in when they lose something, but it's all up to us to make sure that stays that way.
Chitral, you've been tracking lots of wildlife. In the 10 to 15 years as a conservationist, as a photographer, what changes have you observed in the herds that gather at Minneriya?
Large animals like elephants, blue whales, they are driven by basic needs. They need the food, they need the water, they need the space to reproduce. That's the essence, right? They don't worry about social media like us and things like that. They have nothing else. Their lives are simple. But those basic needs have to be maintained, and the space have to be left for them to come and enjoy this. There are times when there are over-visitation, and sometimes about 200 jeeps are in the Minneriya plains. The jeep columns of tourists, which are interested to see the elephants, which is good to have that, block elephants from moving from one point towards the water. Now, these are simple things which we need to bring discipline and systems in. Overcrowding and over-visitation is a tragic event. We should never allow our national parks to become a victim of their own popularity.
What exactly is being done to stop or manage the over-visiting of people coming into the parks, and also the bad behavior you continue to see?
There are some interesting strategies deployed by the Wildlife Department regarding bad behavior, especially if I talk of Yala, overspeeding, going off the road, even 2 tires going off the road. Those things are managed, they're taking a huge effort. But sadly, there is not much being done regarding over-visitation. Now, this is something we've discussed for the last 15 years. In 2010, a year after the conflict ended, we were saying that over-visitation can ruin the experience. And for us in the tourism sector, Savithri, experience is everything. It's not about showing 200 elephants amongst 150 jeeps. That's not an experience. And that is good for a first timer who really doesn't understand what a wildlife experience is about. And that's not the wildlife tourists we want to come in. The good tourists pay the top dollar. And to bring them, we need to manage the experience. And for that, I would earnestly hope that the DWC, the Wildlife Department, the Forest Department, and SLTPB and the private sector in tourism can join hands.
Do you think there will be a possibility of replicating Minneriya in another part of the island?
Amazingly, the replication is already done by nature. You know, when I was 17, 18, 20, 25 years, I used to travel with my father alone for photography. The gathering was in Handapanagar, not in North Central Province, right? This is the other side of the country. There are gatherings at Kalavawa, Parakrama Samudra. Elephants, if you give the ingredients of fresh grass, water, and some shrub forest to hide during the midday, there are many gatherings. So actually, Sri Lanka has multiple gatherings, but the branded event for tourism takes place in Minneriya Tank. And if you just move 70 kilometers to the west or the east, there are even more events like that already taking place.
What do you see next for the Minneriya gathering, both good and bad?
From a tourism perspective, because that's what I like to promote and speak about, it's all about creating, managing the experience and also managing it where you can attract the very responsible, serious wildlife tourists to come. We had about 120 jeeps going on one road towards seeing the elephants, and after watching them for half an hour, you're trafficking back on the same route to get out of the park. This is where I like to propose this in a very polite, humble way from the government, that the Department of Wildlife is doing an amazing job managing the welfare of the animals. But a component of tourism is thrusted upon them because the national parks have tourism. We need to have inside the DWC an AD in charge of wildlife tourism so that both sides are managed.
Thank you so much. You've enlightened us about that great majestic pakitum, and good luck at the festival.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Remember to subscribe, follow, and like us for more.